Hey, Thomas, welcome back to our next interesting topic of this series. How are you today?
Yeah, thanks, Dharam. I'm pretty fine. It's 8 o'clock in the evening in Germany, and it was a hot day, and it's getting hotter. So yeah, it's everything fine. And I'm looking forward to another discussion with you about project management topics. And I think we have more than 70 of these podcasts now. So we started around Corona times, and it was good to do something. But it's also a sign that we continue to do that and that we get some feedback.
Exactly. Because of your efforts, 70 plus the podcasts recorded,
Yeah.
all available on YouTube. Fantastic knowledge share. And I'm sure people can watch them for many, many years to come, and they will continue to
Yeah.
benefit out of this.
And by the way, if people want to find all the podcasts, they can look you up, Dharam, and you have many podcasts there, and maybe they can look up my name. What I did, I created a podcast on my YouTube channel. So with all the Dharam podcasts, so I did with you, and it's a big playlist now, and maybe that eases to find any of the topics.
Yeah. So look, in the series of all this bringing the knowledge together, putting this pool together. So the today's topic is actually around that. The topic is project knowledge sharing for
Yeah,
innovation. So what we are doing is kind of knowledge sharing for innovation and for learning for the people.
yeah, yeah.
Same way we're talking about project knowledge sharing in organization. Many organizations are doing great because they are collaboration happening within the team, the knowledge sharing happening.
Yeah,
And some organizations are doing good because the knowledge you gain is lost because some person left the organization.
that's true.
Yeah,
And we will talk about knowledge and innovation, and now all the things around it, and certainly AI will also be a topic.
exactly.
Yeah, I really like it. I my relationship to knowledge management, and it's a separate topic, is that as I worked with IBM for long years, so IBM had one of the most impressive project management knowledge network with
Exactly.
more than 40,000 people on it globally, and a big database where all these knowledge assets, which were accepted to be an asset, were stored and maintained, and there were stewards around it. So it was a big system. They won some prizes on the one hand side, but the major benefit that came out of it is if they said if we can measure the reuse of knowledge assets, so somebody creates something which is reused, though they need less time to prepare for a client or for whatever, and you can measure the amount of effort you will save for the reuse, and that is a real financial benefit for IBM. So that's why they reinvested this money to knowledge management. It was a business case, and they had a very intensive, let's say, measurement and tracking system around it.
Exactly. And look, when I go back to my own project management years, having an already existing a schedule, which is 80% already done, my job, which was taking me to come up to that level, probably 10 days, now I can do it in 2 days. It's a huge saving.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I can be
So
productive very early from,
well, I think we all are using Google since 20, 25 years, and now we're using ChatGPT to get all this knowledge. So
yeah.
we have to ask the right questions. So this prompting and prompt and engineering, where PMI now has a free course, on how to develop the right prompts depending on what you want to know from such generative AI like ChatGPT. And I did that course. It's not bad, It gives you a first impression
Mm.
and some pathways you can follow to improve uh, let's say effectivity of getting the most out of ChatGPT. By the way, what really uh, came to my mind when I did that. We are learning how to ask questions to AI to obtain the knowledge that we need in our business, in our projects, in our whatever. Um, what do we do to learn how to ask the right questions from humans, from our team, from our customers? That's I think that's a very important skill for project managers. Learn how to ask questions. And I know that if you are, let's say, a project manager and do the business analytics thing, so extracting, eliciting the requirements for the customer, you have to understand how to ask the right questions, and not impose your own thinking. And many technical people I came across in my career as a project management, be it a software architect or some coders or whatever, they had a hard time to ask the right questions and to get the appropriate answers for them. And so there were some misunderstandings, and then they developed something, and in the end, it was not good. It was also because of that, they not being aligned with the right, let me say, prompt engineering for users.
Yeah. So let me ask my first question here. Who are the primary stakeholders responsible for championing project knowledge dissemination? The roles are critical in supporting culture of collaboration, innovation within project teams, and how do they fulfill these roles?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the core role is a person who needs knowledge, and the person, it's mostly the same person who creates knowledge. It's a project manager or one of the team. So, if they invent something they can use in their project, and they then disseminate it or share it with in a knowledge management system, then this is a core person, because here is the beef. It's the knowledge that is created, the invention that is made, and then it's shared and reused, and that's by the same role, but
Yeah.
basically. But in order for that to function, you need to have a knowledge management system around that supports this kind of process, and for that, the role that is very important is a sponsor for the knowledge management system, somebody on the organization level, who said, okay, let's do something like that because it's beneficial for the company. He makes a business case, he provides the funding, he just shows the benefits, he sets up some measurement, whatever. Why are we doing that? Um, and how do we measure it? So as I said just before, IBM measured it by save time by reuse. But others say, okay, we are so creative and unique, like Apple, and maybe they have a measurement about uniqueness of the inventions they have, and the number of contributions, the number of patents was also a measurement that IBM used for some time. So these guys are very important. They represent the business and the organization and want to make sure that this knowledge management is working for the organization, because the knowledge we are creating, as a project manager or as a team member, is not for ourselves or for the same project. Maybe yes, but it's a small part. And it's not, let's say, for the world, for the public, but it's for the own organization primarily. So the organization says these are knowledge assets, these are under my ownership, and we have something like intellectual property, and we have something like patents. This could go into this direction, not so much with normal projects. But these the sponsors and the knowledge creators, and then we have all the, let's say, the intermediate things that make this knowledge system work. So it might be a PMO, for instance, a PMO which is setting up the knowledge creation dissemination process, is
Mm.
overseeing it, is measuring things, is making sure that the interfaces work well, that the tool is installed, that people are trained to use the tool appropriately. Many companies, they start with using, let's say, SharePoint, but it mostly fails in the end. because of the lack of the good search facility. You cannot really search within the documents. Some use Confluence, but there are specialized knowledge management tools, and if you really go for it as an organization, I would recommend looking into these. And then also besides the PMO who is making let's say the interfacing, the integration of it all, then what IBM had, what I think is very important, are so-called knowledge stewards. So if I create something and I think it's great for other projects, let's say I create something in Germany and it's great for a project in Australia too. Somebody has to check this, and somebody has to check this that my quality is appropriate, that the metadata, which is necessary to search and to find the right things, is created appropriately. And then these knowledge stewards also set up something like they not only check when you check in with the knowledge, but they also have maybe in IBM it was 2 years review cycle. Now when they look at it again and did it work, did it work in the context? Was it reused? How many downloads do we have? How many comments, likes, whatever do we have? And this is very important. Then the whole system and the stewards might as IBM did, annual conferences and reporting about this, and there were prizes and awards and certificates for knowledge creators and first place and whatever. So a whole system around it, and then it works, because in the end, it's very hard to look at a project manager who is overwhelmed by his tasks anyhow, and then ask them to do something which is not primarily for the project, but for the organization. This is another target.
Exactly. So this is all about organization improvement. So
Yeah.
how can we have more and more successful projects on, a project after project? Yes, we did one project, two projects, and what did we learn? And did we capture the learning out of that into a knowledge management system? And can we use it effectively, efficiently? That's where the tagging, indexing come in picture. So that's where the PMO can come in. Hey guys, make sure you have tagging, indexing properly. So in future, somebody is looking for this kind of project, they can easily search for this kind of this project.
Exactly. And you have to have somebody in the organization who is in charge of making this run fluidly, and often it's a PMO style of organization.
Exactly. Could you discuss some experimental methodologies or prototyping techniques that have successfully validated innovative hypotheses within the project management?
Yeah. Well, I'm now studying again at the university in Zurich about project management, PMOs, and so on. And I'm a little bit now into reading scientific papers and seeing how the scientific method works. And so it's rarely used in projects, but so as we have, we are starting with a problem statement. There is an issue somewhere, and then so we think we find a solution, and we establish a hypothesis. We say, okay, this might be a solution to that problem, and then we have an experiment, and this experiment could just be to have a survey to get some data from the field, from analyzing documents. So there are many ways of doing experiments in science, and they could used in projects too. And then we have data analysis, and then we say hypothesis is okay, supported or not, and then we have an outcome and a result. We can say, okay, our scientific method problem achieves this insight, this new knowledge. The problem with that is, it's a lengthy process, and it's a lot of documentation, a lot of rigor, and this is normally not done in projects. So if you look at projects, what they have, is yes, they have a problem and then they try to find a solution, but they don't use the scientific experimental method. They normally use things like, let's say, the double diamond of design thinking, which is a very appropriate problem solving tool, or any of these problem solving processes that are described. And PMI has even a course about wicked problems. You could use these kind of uh, problem solving, and then you come to a best solution, and then uh, and then you have your problem is solved, but you don't have really knowledge for the organization yet, because only when you generalize this solution, when you document it, only then you might create a documented asset for the organization to reuse that, and so it might be easier if you write a scientific paper
Yep.
that has maybe 20, 30 pages and 75 references, and it takes to write 3 months at least. So you don't do that as a project manager. But, problem solutions with different techniques, you can do that, and then you have to document what you do. So why are project managers not really documenting their knowledge? Because um, they say, why should I do that? It has no use for my project now,
Yeah.
and I'm in a time pressure anyhow, because I just solved the problem. So we are still sweating, and now you ask me to document this whole stuff. No way. And then maybe in the end of the project, there is some time to document, but you never do that.
And guess what? By
So
the time you finish one project, you have another 5 projects lined up for you.
Exactly. So you need some, let's say, some resilience, and you need some serenity to say, okay, I'm in a project, I solved the problem, and now let's take it and generalize it and put it into the knowledge database, Um, and for that you need some motivation, and a lot of motivations. We will talk about them again, but um, it's the motivation has to be intrinsic. You have to understand why you are doing that. There are some because we talked, okay, what are new experimental ways to create knowledge, to innovate, and there is this I call it more teaming approach or organizational approach. You go to your team, so you could do an hackathon, yeah, for
Mm.
instance, about the problems. And then many people come together and they work together for a day or two, and then they come up with new ideas or not. It's a kind of mass brainstorming, brain writing and so on. They work together, they find prioritized solutions, and they even implement it in software. Gaming overall, if you know heard of this Lego game, when you bring your team together and they have some Lego bricks, they have to create something in let's say 15 minutes as a team, and then people get creative. It does not really solve a problem,
Mm.
uh, but it helps you to understand how to solve a problem.
Yeah.
This knowledge is also important. And by the way, this gaming is a way also of knowledge transfer, because the knowledge that is transferred through gaming is know-how to solve problems knowledge.
Yeah.
It's a kind of sometimes a tacit knowledge. So it's not documented. Yeah, maybe gaming is documented, but only if you do it, you can experience the feeling and how to do it, and can replicate it. And then we have organizational approaches like competition.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, yeah. Or what I did a lot of times with my clients. So we had annual, let's say, festivities, 40 clients, 30 IBMers in the room, 70 people, and then we always had a brainstorming session. So there is some processes. I use the 6-3-5 method. You heard of that?
But it's 365, miss?
6, 3, 5. So 6 people on a round table, and everybody has to, well, there's a topic, a problem statement, and then they all have to find 3 solutions for it, and then put it on a sheet of paper, and then so everybody after 5 minutes has written down the 3 solutions, and he shifts the paper to the other person right on his right hand side, and this person is expected to read the 3 solutions and to refine them. So not to create new stuff, but use the stuff the predecessors created, and then think about it. So because this can, let's say, inseminate your own thinking a little bit.
Yeah.
And so you're connecting the dots, find new stuff. So these are approaches you can use in projects to innovate, to create knowledge, but then always, again, with this brainstorming, hackathons, it's nice to do that, but how to really bring it into the organization that it can be reused.
Perfect, perfect. You gave so many different types of tools which can be utilized by many people, hackathon, or I like the 6-3-5 approach, because yes, you have same problem, we have different ideas, refine, and you learn from the whole process.
Yeah, well, and actually these sheets, we put on big boards, and everybody gets these dots to glue on this, and then everybody goes through the solutions, and there are 3 to 5, 15 solutions on every sheet, and if you have 6 people, 6 sheets.
Yeah.
So there are many of these sheets. If you have 70 people, you have 10 of these round tables. So we have big plates of these things, and everybody goes around and puts his dots, and so you identify, let's say, the top 10 ideas that were created by 70 people in an hour, which is not bad.
No, it's a quick way of getting knowledge together, and like a speed knowledge sharing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good job. Thank you for bringing to this to attention. Okay, my next question is, what are some effective incentivization mechanism and recognition frameworks? How can we make your team members to participate by giving them some incentives?
Yeah.
So these are the keys in encouraging team members to actively engage in knowledge sharing and contribute innovative ideas. How can we implement these effectively?
Well, as I said before, why would project managers create knowledge and do that?
Yeah.
And while there are monetary incentives in some companies, even in IBM, you have to have an intrinsic motivation to do that. And the intrinsic motivation, the best I came across in my career, there are many, but I came across is that you understand that with publishing knowledge, with creating knowledge, with which is under your name, you were the inventor or documenter or whatever, then you are creating your reputation.
Yeah.
Because people in Australia will read about you, from you, and will say, "Oh, the clever guy, he created this, I used it." So you create a positive reputation of yourself if you do that. And if you're looking for your career, your network and your reputation is what really counts. It's not, so your reputation in making a project successful is certainly more important. But if you create a lot of knowledge and your name is on it, it's also very good. Actually, this is what all these scientists at universities do, researchers, they really strive to publish. They strive to put papers in magazines, and there are so many journals and magazines, and they all have a very rigorous process to accept papers, and if you are in there, there are even databases who show, okay, this researcher has published in the last 5 years so and so often. And this is one of the criteria to be selected as another researcher, you know. So this is a measurement for and the motivation for researchers to have many, many publications. So for a project manager striving for a career, it should be also a measurement, having many, many knowledge points. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I publish in projectmanagement.com. So I comment on questions and answers, or I publish on LinkedIn, and you publish on LinkedIn. You know, it's all to make your name connected to good knowledge and to give back, and people don't have to pay for it in that moment, you know, but they can come back to you and ask questions, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But actually, that's it. Yeah.
It's a very effective way of sharing knowledge. I'll give one example, and this is based on the feedback I got from the recruitment agent. And this is when I was selected for this position back in Australia, and he was very excited. This is a big company, but he said that this is my first job with this client, so I'm happy. Can we have a coffee together? And before he joined the company, he said, "Okay, why not? For me, it's another job." I said, then when you start sharing some important thing, look, Dharam, you're lucky that you got the job. Okay, why? Why do you think I'm lucky? There were 170 applications for this role. Wow. And why did you select me to put in front of your client? That's where the discussion started. Okay, look, Dharam, there are some application where they're coming interstate or international or junior role. Why we can eliminate them, and we can use them, PMP as one of the filter. We eliminated half of them. Now the next thing he told me, the reason we pick you, yes, you have certifications and you have PMP, pgmp as a certificate, but more importantly, you are active on LinkedIn. You're actively sharing a lot of knowledge on LinkedIn or internet, and that is making you more favorable than other people.
Yeah, you say it. Actually, you're building, and it's your responsibility to build your own reputation, you know, and it's by stepping out, you know, giving presentations, publishing articles, and it goes so far as publishing a book. So did you write a book yet?
Yep, we have a book. It's a complete reference guide for pgmp, PFM.
Yeah.
Another book. Yes, books are in pipeline. But yeah, this is where you leave the legacy for your current and the future, network or people, or they may be watching your video, like this video. Maybe somebody watching today, is 2049. Yeah, hey, and they're thinking, who's this Thomas? He was so learned person.
And I did not publish a book yet. I was asked several times to write something. I participated in chapters to several books, and I'm a little bit torn, because writing a book is a real huge effort, especially if you do it for the first time. It's not so much a question how to publish it. There are enough people who get good content and want that. And the first small books, if you sell, let's say 500, you don't make a fortune out of it. Maybe you even invest. But let me tell you one story. When I was at IBM, I had several careers. So I was in software development for 10 years, and then I was for 3 years a systems engineer building data centers and installing hardware and so on for clients. And when I entered this system engineering division within IBM, it was a change. And I had a new manager, and I had an interview with that new manager. And one question he asked me was, "Did you write a book?" So, I was a young software developer entering the profession of system engineering. Why should I have written a book? But exactly, this was a question. He would have been massively impressed if I would have written a book. And so maybe I can recommend, you don't have to be the big specialist. You don't have the 20 years of experience. Maybe you're just a good writer. Try it out. Start with small articles and then write a book. And maybe, you know, the topic of the book could be anything, what is in your mind, because your mind is so bright. Uh, Even if you're young, you know, you have so many ideas, and so put them on paper and
Yeah.
then get a good lecture and, you know, review it and publish.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I think, Thomas, we'll talk about this topic after this podcast, how to get our first book together. There you go.
Maybe. And you know, we are talking about knowledge, and if you publish a book, you're sharing knowledge, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Okay, let's talk about the next question. How can digital platforms and collaborative tools be effectively integrated into project management to enhance communication and streamline knowledge sharing?
There are many things in steps you could do. First of all, you know, in everything um, digital we do now, AI has a role, but these roles are different from step to step. So I think the first step you have to take is to make sure that your knowledge management system for your organization, you have a central hub,
Yeah.
because as every project or division is creating their own knowledge in their own format, whatever, this will not come together. This will not be shared, or yeah, it will yeah, diminish over time anyhow. And in the central hub, you could put in some standards, like, you know, who has access rights. You know, is there a process, a workflow for this? You
Yeah.
know, so I suggest the knowledge assets. Then a steward comes in, makes a peer review, and then it is promoted to published, and then you have some automatic metrics tracking. You know, is it read, is it downloaded, is it reused, whatever you have. You know, so this is the status of the, and then after 2 years you review it. You know, and maybe it is retired after some time, so that you don't have a lot of garbage in your knowledge management system. So this is something you have to support by tools. You cannot do it in Excel, or you cannot do it in SharePoint, or in whatever. You know, you have to have a tool that is capable of this workflow, of this tracking of metrics, and of this very sophisticated search engine.
Hmm.
Because, you know, if you have your documents everywhere, and you just search for keywords, this will not bring anything. You have to have some intelligent search, maybe
Intelligent.
using metadata. Probably today's metadata, maybe at some time AI can take that as a real-time metadata generator. Yeah, and then feedback for that, you know, evaluations, and yeah, that's a documented, let's say, knowledge network. But, you know, let me put it here. Now, how to make sure that tacit knowledge that cannot be documented in text,
Hmm.
you know, is being transferable. And for that, you know, a small step in the right direction is, we have videos like this one. But, you know, we only talk. It could also be text. But there are a lot of videos on YouTube, how to clean my washing machine or whatever, you know, you can find it. Then they show you how to open the washing machine, and how to clean, and how to whatever. And these are very valuable YouTube videos. I use them a lot to look into things, because they show how to do things. But beyond that, you know, tacit knowledge is not only a visual effect on the knowledge, but it's also, you know, in Germany, we have 3 years time for apprentices to learn a profession. So they and it's two-level system. One level is school, where you learn about the theory of plumbing or whatever,
Yeah.
and the second level is, and it's more than two-thirds of the amount of time that you go into a company, in a workshop, and you work with somebody, and look how he's doing that, and, you know, and learn how to brush a steel or whatever, you know, because you might read about it, but, you know, I always say, to understand what is tacit knowledge, what is documented knowledge. So if you learn how to kiss somebody, you know, That's tacit knowledge. You have to do it, otherwise you won't ever grasp it from a book what it is. You know, you can describe it in a book in many words, how to kiss and what kind of kisses there are and what feelings come out, but they feel it's words, you know, it's not the real emotion. And you have to have this real emotion. It's like, well, maybe not kissing, it's maybe too private, but you know, think about driving a Formula One car.
Yeah.
Can you learn that by the book? Mm-mm.
Yeah. Look, very important. Yes, theoretical knowledge you gain out of it. But how your example is very interesting. How to kiss. And okay, I need to find a girl to, somebody to make it practical. Anyway, so tacit knowledge is very important. Just like we can collect or write anything. But what when you're running the project, how you are handling your stakeholders. When I'm observing you, I may not replicate, but I'm observing you and how this difficult customer or stakeholder was shouting at you, and suddenly they come out with a calm and control and very gently and shaking hand, and how did you do this? You cannot write on the paper. You cannot mention. But if I'm observing you and the way you
Yeah.
use the body language, the way you observe, the way you use the positive tone, and converting that anger into the respect, and that you cannot write it. Never.
Exactly.
So that's where the observation, you correctly said, one portion of reading books, yep, you read it, come out of college, go and join internship and learn from these the expert in that same area. They are doing the same thing again, but they
Yeah.
know how to do the things, in more effectively and efficiently.
I think, and another this distinction we can make here is this documented knowledge, is all rational. You say, you put in this and push that button and this comes out.
Yep.
That's rational. Tacit knowledge mostly is irrational because it involves some emotions, some feelings, some that you grasp the situation, and we humans are able to do that, but it's far beyond rational thinking or even data.
Mm.
Sometimes we just make conclusions without having, well, sometimes, always, we make conclusions without having enough data to make that rationally and logically. So we are able to think logically, but maybe we do that for 5% of the time. The rest is, oh, I like that cookie now.
Mm. Anyway, good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Let's go to the next question. Can you elaborate on how organizational culture influences the success of knowledge sharing initiatives, particularly when we're talking about diverse or multinational teams?
Yeah. Well, like with all teams, if it's knowledge sharing or something else, trust is a
Yeah, trust. Very important.
and trust is a status you achieved after doing something. Trust, you you cannot tell them now we trust each other, but you have to have some probably face-to-face interactions. You have to some kind of kick off, a kind of behavior which is then encoded in the culture. So yeah, you build the culture, you build the trust, and that's a main task of the project manager actually for the team. And then you have all the other positive things. If you have a knowledge management system that gives you a structure and a security, okay, this is a process, the workflow, how we deal with knowledge. You have rewards in the system. And interestingly, when you create knowledge, you should have the experience that how much diversity is important and helps you. Because you might have a good idea, you go to this direction, and then all of a sudden you talk to Indian or you talk to a Chinese or you talk whatever, and they look at the same thing in a different way, and they might give you some other ideas about it, and though the idea might grow and become more, and that's based on diversity. So I think these global teams are very valuable, but you have to make sure that they trust each other and that there are rewards. And rewards can be monetary, especially for US guys, but maybe for others it's more the reputation, that they contribute or some other ethical things. And then what also helps is uh, a flat structure. So if you have to go with every email and suggestion up 5 levels and then it goes down 5 levels, that's distorting the message. It's also hindering trust and it's hindering collaboration, and immediately coming to that aha effect. Yeah, that's real time aha effect. If you tell somebody something, it makes click, but
Yeah.
it makes click in that moment, and then you have to utilize that moment.
Yeah, so it's a very important point you mentioned, the trust. And if I'm sharing something, how this knowledge is going to be used, for what purpose? Maybe you can use it against me, or I may share and then nobody else is sharing,
Yeah.
and I may become redundant, because all the knowledge you have is already documented or somebody has already captured. So these are the many fears people have when they're sharing or thinking of sharing. There has to be bigger incentive. Okay, if I'm sharing, I may get monetary benefit, and or maybe some kind of recognition. So that's where people are willing to share by capturing this knowledge and
Yeah.
into the knowledge repository, or sharing the tested knowledge with other people. You get special recognition, or people see you as a SME. If that's the case, yeah, that's what happened. Like in our
And
case, we're talking, with 70 plus podcasts we have captured. What we're doing is sharing knowledge. Whatever we have learned over a period of time, you work for IBM and I work for HP, and many of the companies will learn, we're sharing people. So, and we don't have fear, like, we are here to share so that people can learn and they can do the job better. And if that's the thing, and why we're doing this, of course, people can see Thomas as a, SME in this area, Dharam is SME in this area, and that kind of, we need to build some some incentive plans, or showing that by sharing the knowledge, how you're going to be seen as a SME with the company, or people will come to you for knowledge, discussion, and maybe some kind of a point system where they can get an Amazon gift card or something else, can help them to bring more and more knowledge into one place.
right.
Yeah. So could you share an example of successful knowledge sharing initiatives and how it was tailored to meet the specific needs of the
Yeah,
team?
it's again, I come back to that IBM project management knowledge network. That said, more than 40,000 project managers part of it, at least registered. Maybe less did contribute knowledge.
Yeah.
By the way, we had at this time, when I last looked at it, we had about 8,000 PMPs in that database only. So there were a lot of project managers active in IBM which were not yet PMPs. Okay. I think that changed, but we had a global one central hub, one global database with access to everybody who is in that knowledge network, but not people outside. So this is an access checking. And as I said, they were measured by reuse and saved hours, and so they funded themselves. Another example I came along is and it's NASA, no? NASA JPL, uh, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and they had some problems at NASA with the Challenger disasters and so on, and they learned from that. And so what they introduced for knowledge dissemination is PAL, Pause and Lean Initiative, and they it was a structured approach, where they had regular sessions. It was inclusive, so inviting from every kind of profession the people into that, and was facilitated and documented the outcomes. And there was an iteration of feedback. If the outcomes are implemented, it's also important. How often have I said in a session very good results and then nothing happens? So the outcome is somehow incorporated into changes in the organization. That's very important. And then maybe the last example I want to give is it's not with the company, but with the industry, is nuclear industry, And in our in our local group in the Darmstadt chapter, in the Germany chapter, we have one girl who is for 30 years in the nuclear industry. And we had a discussion about knowledge management, and she shared that this industry is so much focused on knowledge preservation because, they want to document something that people need to read in 200 years from now. So that's totally different things. And then, if they decommission a nuclear plant or whatever, that's a lot of documentation. They have to refer to building documentation 50 years old. So this is a very core aspect of their work, that they document, that they get the knowledge from old times, and that they create knowledge for times in the future that are now for us, it's not real now, but for them, they have to do that. So they also find out ways, so they don't use floppy disks, because in 200 years there will be no floppy disk reader anymore as it is today. So yeah, so there are a lot of good examples, and I also want to say, it's there are some knowledge management associations and special groups and community of practice, and I know some of the gurus. One of them was with us at IBM when I was trying to sell knowledge management to a client unsuccessfully. But nevertheless, from him, I learned a lot because, in such a proposal, we put in all our knowledge and good arguments and everything. And I'm really convinced that knowledge management is something that is very important for organizations. It's not so important for our short-lived, let's say, consulting software organizations, but another example, construction. Construction also has a lot of documentation. There was in Bavaria, we had a lot of snow some winters ago, and one of these sports halls, 40 years old, and there was a lot of weight of the snow on the roof, and it collapsed. Some people died. And so in the end, they built it 40 years before that event, and there was an architect calculating all that, and so they found the documents from the architect, and the approvals, everything, and he was retired for a long time, but he was sued, and he was found guilty for that accident, after 40 years.
Yeah. One of the example I can think of, and this I think everybody knows, whoever in the project management, the PMBOK. When PMBOK was created, it's a kind of a knowledge from various industry people, SMEs, coming from different areas, and they have their different expertise, and PMI did a good job by collecting this whole entire knowledge into one standard. That's how it was created. I think that's a good way of collecting knowledge from industries, SMEs, and bring it to the wide audience.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the PMBOK, it has a long title, a guide to the project management knowledge of body of knowledge. So many people say it's a PMBOK. No, it's not the body of knowledge. No book could really contain all the body of knowledge, which is also changing, evolving, whatever. So that's why PMI called it rightly. This is the guide to the body of knowledge. We can guide you to that. And so they gave it a structure with the chapters and so on, and the and the processes. And that's how they started to do that. And I think this concept was genius, and it somehow blurred out over the time. And the other thing was, what we also have forgotten a bit, the PMBOK guide was intentionally only looking for knowledge that is established, used on most projects most of the time. This was a criteria. Knowledge to be included in the PMBOK guide. And now we expect such a guide, such a standard to also include evolving practices and evolving knowledge. And maybe that's not proven in practice. Maybe it's necessarily because of the quicker changes in the marketplace. But when it's all started in 1996, it was a guide for the body of knowledge,
Yeah.
and it was made out of components that were
Yeah.
proven in practice.
Right. Okay. My next question is, what leadership strategies are crucial for fostering a knowledge sharing environment? And the role of leaders is significant in championing these initiatives. How can they effectively do this?
Yeah, I think leadership is the same in all areas. You are a role model. Your behavior should be a modeling for others. So if you share, and if you create knowledge and disseminate it, and if you explain things, if you ask questions, then
Yeah.
this is leadership behavior that maybe, um, as you said, people are watching you, how you're doing things and how you are successful, and then people will replicate you.
Yeah.
So it also should be a supportive culture should be established, that it is allowed to create new stuff. Here you have some slack. So there was a guy, I think Tom DeMarco, one famous author about software something, and he wrote a book that was called Slack, and that is exactly the freedom you have in between your tasks to think about new things, innovate, and also document what you have found, and yeah. So what all of these leaders, should accomplish, and I talked about this a little bit before, a follow-up. If you innovate something, you create something, and it's just landing in the garbage bin, you are so much frustrated, and you are not really trying to do it again. So there has to be a feedback, there has to be a follow-up, and maybe if only 1% of the innovations get to something, they should get to something, and they
Yeah.
should be acknowledged and rewarded. Yeah, and then you can build some communities of practice
Yeah.
where people discuss a specific topic. So in one company, one customer, we had a risk management community of practice or an estimating community of practice. And this is, that the specialists come together and can exchange knowledge again, and can learn and do that in a sometimes informal way. Maybe have a mentorship, a coaching sessions, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
on.
Mentorship coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the leader again, like always, they should lead by questions. This is the prompt engineering of for humans. It's not only for important for AI, but also for humans. How to motivate them and extract the knowledge out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, the leadership plays a very important role in cultivating a culture of,
Yeah,
people are really motivated to share and
yeah,
build knowledge pool and, whatever is, how you champion this area, how you sponsor this area, how you make people motivate to
yeah.
really come out and share with everybody else so that we have a culture of sharing and learning from each other and do our job better. So they do play a very important role. And, as if the knowledge is the companies, they should think about, hey, what are we doing with this? There's so much knowledge we have. When people leave the organization, they just go, we left with nothing. And I think that's one of the problems which is happening in many of the agile projects where they're saying no documentation, no process to follow, blah, blah, blah. They're all just made up terms. And when the project finish, they just go, they are contracted, they left. Whatever learning happened, where's the knowledge?
Yeah. Well,
So
that in general, that's a problem with contractors. You hire them and they do a job, and project finish, they leave. So in my last company, I was working with the PMO, and we had established an onboarding process for project managers on the outside, and this worked quite well. Um, So before that process, imagine that, it may take 6 weeks for an external contractor to get an email address,
Yeah.
get access to all the systems. So to speed that up is very important, and but equally important is the deboarding, when they go out, because sometimes they just finish the project, next day they are gone. No, they have to be required to document what they have done, and maybe to have a handover session and all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. How can we establish and utilize quantifiable metrics to assess the efficiency of the knowledge sharing practices and the impact on project innovation?
Yeah, I think if you have objectives for your knowledge management system,
Mm,
you can find KPIs like we number of innovations or number of people participating, an average number of inventions, reuse. So there are a lot of measurable things, but you also the thing with KPIs is you can define a lot based on the link them to the objectives. Maybe it's a fine chart, but then, the trouble starts if you want to check them because you have the data, is there some ambiguity in the data? And well, I think if you have the data and you can report on the KPIs, that's interesting to many. But on the other hand, it's KPI of the knowledge management system, and that's mostly internally focused.
mm,
So I think for IBM it was not so much important how many inventions there were, but how many hours of effort did we save,
yep.
money did we save on not having to start from scratch again. And this is something you should. There are objectives for the system, yeah, but these objectives are linked to the goals, to the benefits, expected benefits of the organization.
Yeah.
Later on, you can do some benchmarking. If you have a system, you see what works with me, and you look at others, and you can compare yourself. Go to conferences, present your thing, get a feedback, whatever. A lot of things you do with other things like a PMO, or a Scrum house or whatever. Then you go out and exchange and see what happens the outside.
Yeah.
So is it difficult? Not at all. But it's dangerous if you have too many and the wrong KPIs.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So one of the things I've noticed in some of the, like when you buying Amazon, go to Amazon or look for reviews. When somebody reading your reviews and it helps, they ask you whether this was helpful or not. So if you written review about me and somebody is reading, they find it's useful. They probably take one or whatever they do, and you also feel, oh yeah, people are appreciating my contribution.
Yeah.
So, that you can have something like this, system where you say how many people are actually sharing and how many people is downloading and how many people are able to utilize it as it is, or maybe after tailoring it. And is it really saving some time? As you mentioned, in IBM, you have how much time are we saving? How much productivity we are gaining out of this?
Yeah.
There can be KPIs around that. You can have a survey. When you downloaded this document, how useful was it? And whether it helped you to save some time and help you to build your documentation faster. So some of these surveys can be useful for you to continue to improve
Yep. Yep.
the quality of information shared. Some people just for the sake of sharing, everybody asking me to write some lesson learned, let me put something, so my job is done. No, how important that the lesson learned captured, what was the purpose and who was able to use it in what purpose. Yeah. If you permit, I can take the last question as well. Yeah. So looking ahead, what are the emerging knowledge sharing trends that will significantly impact the project and program in near future?
The near future looking ahead, yeah. Well, for sure, it's AI.
Yeah,
And it's also
ChatGPT.
other emerging technologies like augmented reality. You already have this, that you have this spectators that you work on a virtual workbench or whatever. You can do that. And Microsoft, I think 5 years ago, they presented on the stage some of this kind of features of augmented reality. We will increase our collaborative platforms. Today, okay, you can work on a Word document, that's nice, but maybe you can work on other things. And I don't mean a Miro board, and a whiteboard where you can share something. Maybe something more um, uh, specific to the industry, like the BIM tools, the BIM building information modeling tools that give you a collaboration platform on the virtual on the how's it called, the virtual image of the building you are
Mm.
you can try out everything, look at 3D and see the cost and whatever, and how to change things. um, it will be more become more cross-function, even more than today. So maybe today we are looking at things like project management or software development and Scrum, and these are all some kind of silos in knowledge, and maybe we can learn something from healthcare,
Yeah.
or we can learn something from nuclear or something. Yeah, and I think these silos should be a little bit broken up, and we should cross-share knowledge and learn from each other, because learning and innovation always involves to look at existing knowledge, yeah, and then create new connections. And this is the most used way how to create new knowledge, not by finding something crazy new, never thought about that. No. Everybody thought about a lot of things, but nobody saw that connection yet. You have a lot of knowledge items in the world, but you have even more connections between them, and so that's the point. And then you need cross-functional, diverse, and different mindsets around that to find new knowledge. And let me, I think, although you have, as the last point, the global cultural growth we have,
Yeah.
we are coming together as a human hive, regardless of geopolitical struggles. And my last comment to them, I just read mid of July, there was a news article about Huawei, which are heavily sanctioned by the US not to be able to create these chips. And they now created a research center in Shanghai, new one, where they will host 35,000 scientists,
Mm.
and they will look at technology. So yeah, chip production is one thing, but also 5G, 6G, and so on, telecommunications. Uh, and 35,000 scientists are more as all of Silicon Valley combined. So, that's again one of the things to my American friends, if you act, you will see a reaction, and the Chinese are perfect at reacting in a way you would not imagine before.
Exactly. Look, a lot of changes are happening. Things are changing very, very fast. We need to look around what the best way to share with each other, and whether using ChatGPT or AI-based tools, and you have a Zoom like of Zoom and other things you have available, utilizing that, and more innovative, mirror board and whiteboarding, collectively sharing knowledge. There are lot of things are happening around the world. So look, knowledge is the sharing is caring. So that's what we learn when you are younger, and that should be the thing. Whatever we are learning, if we share with others, it actually grows. More you share, is growth multiplied by many times. So that's what the purpose of this, all the podcast we started, so that we collect the knowledge and can be utilized by millions of people around the world, and keep growing the sharing this knowledge, which can be utilized by you guys when you watch this and use maybe a portion of that. Our job is done. So keep an innovative way of collecting data, information, and sharing with your colleagues. and sharing with your friends on LinkedIn or YouTube. There are many, many platforms that are available.
Yeah.
All right. So, Thomas, as usual, you have been very, very kind to share your knowledge. And this topic was perfect. The way we have been collecting the knowledge, you did really well this time as well. And thank you for bringing all the knowledge, your 35, 40, or 100 year of knowledge you have gained over the past many years.
50, not
50.
100. No, not yet 100.
Anyway, thank you, Thomas. And I'm looking forward to my next interaction with you very soon. And
Yeah.
thanks again.
Thanks, Dharam, and it was a pleasure as always. And thanks to all of you who happened to listen these last seconds of this podcast. And I hope you learned something. And if you have a question, come to us.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.